You have joined the Colorado 119 Diagonal Highway Transportation Project virtual community meeting. My name is Carla Pettis, and I'm a consultant with the 119 Safety and Mobility Improvement Project. And I will be serving as your moderator this evening. This is a simultaneous it's a simultaneous interpretation event in English and in Spanish. Spanish interpretation will be provided by Marina Lagarde. Presenters, please remember that you need to speak slowly to allow for effective interpretation. A bit about the use of the interpretation tool. Please go to the bottom of your Zoom screen to the menu bar and press on the globe icon to select the language in which you prefer to listen to this information. You need to select English or Spanish. Make sure to select one. Welcome and bienvenidos, and welcome and thank you for joining us. We hope you will share your comments and questions regarding tonight's presentation. Please submit your questions by using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. You will have time at the end of the session, or we will have time at the end of the session to address your questions. Also, please note that this meeting is being recorded. Tonight, our project sponsors are Boulder County, the Colorado Department of Transportation, and the Regional Transportation District. And each would like to provide a brief welcome to our virtual audience. Let's start with Boulder County Commissioner Claire Levy.
Thank you, Carla. I am Claire Levy. I'm one of 3 Boulder County Commissioners, and I want to welcome everyone to this meeting tonight. It's great to see such a large turnout. I want to thank all of you for taking time out of your evening to join us for this community meeting. Boulder County is pleased to be here alongside our project partners, including CDOT, RTD, the cities of Boulder and Longmont, and Commuting Solutions. Tonight, you'll hear about exciting projects that will work together to improve the Diagonal Highway, also known officially as State Highway 119, transportation corridor between Boulder and Longmont. These projects are a collaborative and integrated effort that represent a major shift in how this corridor will look, feel, and operate, and will address a number of priorities we share with our municipal and agency partners, including improving safety with the development of new transportation facilities. The Colorado 119 Bikeway and Rapid Transit will provide safe and efficient multimodal options on this corridor. Another priority is advancing equity and affordability by expanding access and connectivity so people have more mobility choices along the corridor and within the communities, and protecting the environment by providing reliable mobility options that reduce emissions and improve air quality and help achieve our regional climate goals. These projects would not be possible without community input, which is why we're so grateful for your participation here tonight. Boulder County is excited to continue working with our partners and the public to further advance these efforts and improve quality of life for residents and travelers. Thank you again for your time and willingness to engage with this effort.
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Next, we have Heather Paddock, CDOT Region 4 Transportation Director.
Thank you, Carla. Good evening. My name is Heather Paddock. I'm the Region 4 Transportation Director. Region 4 is the northeast quadrant of the state of Colorado. Again, thank you for taking your time. Your community input is so important to these projects. We really do value the engagement that we get from all of our stakeholders and the traveling public, the ones that live near us and the ones that commute through this corridor. So it really does have an impact on the outcomes and what you as taxpayer will receive in return as part of these transportation projects. So CDOT's pleased to be working in partnership with the Regional Transportation District, otherwise known as RTD, on the various BRT elements of the 119 Safety and Mobility Project. and collaborating with Boulder County on the Bikeway project. Collectively, these projects will transform the way commuters, residents, and visitors move through the corridor with a mind towards safety, sustainability, and linking mobility options. Our transportation goal is to improve safety, improve trip reliability regardless of mode, and reduce traffic accidents by making improvements to intersections, enhancing signals, signage, and turn lanes. CDOT recognizes that with the population and economic growth we are experiencing in our region, we need to look at broad mix of improvements to meet the growing demand on our facilities, and we need to partner as public service agencies to provide commuters with transit and bikeway options. 3 years ago, CDOT set out to create a 10-year plan that had fiscal constraint and reflected the vision of the department, which focused on safety, clean transportation, and encompassed all modes of transportation. Extensive community and public outreach were done, and for Boulder County, 119 rose to the top of their list. CDOT has prioritized $40 million in the first 4 years of this plan and another $25 million in the next 4 years. This $65 million of funding, along with other funding from our partners like RTD, DRCOG, and Boulder County, allow us to be strategic about how we prioritize the improvement. Although funds identified today do not fully fund the vision outlined in the Planning and Environmental Linkage Study done on this corridor, they provide adequate funding that bring the greatest benefits and facilitate future investments by minimizing construction impacts to the community in the future and eliminate duplicative or throwaway work. This corridor may be improved over years, but each construction project will have independent utility and will provide the maximum benefit to the user once completed. Tonight, you'll learn more about our project and see our preliminary project designs. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Heather. And finally, let's hear from Marta Sapecki. She's the Interim Assistant General Manager for RTD.
Hi there. Thanks, Carla. I too want to extend my welcome and thank you for joining us this evening. As Carla mentioned, my name is Marta Sapecki, and I am the Interim Assistant General Manager for Communications with the Regional Transportation District, or RTD. RTD is pleased to join our project team partners, CDOT and Boulder County, to talk about the exciting developments in the corridor, including improvements like advancing bus rapid transit, or BRT, that will optimize travel through the corridor. To quote RTD General Manager and CEO Deborah A. Johnson, the Colorado 119 corridor projects are shining examples of commitment, consensus, and collaboration to prioritize and enhance cost-effective mobility improvements in the region. These closely linked initiatives will yield significant quality of life benefits for area residents and visitors, and demonstrate the value of integrated transportation options throughout the state of Colorado. Tonight, you will hear project updates and see preliminary design station renderings that will give you a good feel for how we are designing the BRT stations, the park and rides, bikeways, pedestrian crossings, and signal improvements, all with the user in mind, and that means you are top priority. So we look forward to hearing your feedback and appreciate you giving us your time this evening. So Carla, I will turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta, and thank you all for those opening remarks. Now let's do a quick review of our agenda this evening. We'll start with the corridor video to give you an overall feel for the project. And then you're going to hear from each of our agency project representatives who will introduce themselves and share specifics about the various elements of the corridor project, including why we are making these improvements, what changes have been designed, and how these projects will help to improve your travel through the corridor in whatever form of transportation you choose. I'll join you again at the end of the presentation to address your questions. Please remember to submit your questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Now let's move to the video.
State Highway 119, or the Diagonal Highway, is a vital connection between Longmont and Boulder. It is the second most traveled corridor in Boulder County, and it's only going to get busier. The communities and areas served by the highway are some of the fastest growing areas in the Front Range. The Diagonal is one of the most dangerous roadways in our county. There are far too many serious and fatal crashes.
Action is needed to address the current and future congestion and safety problems. So Boulder County has teamed up with the community and local and regional partners to create the multimodal corridor vision for State Highway 119. This vision includes transit improvements, including commuter rail, commuter bikeway, and roadway improvements. It will take time to complete the entire vision, but we are making progress. The Highway 119 corridor improvements will optimize regional connectivity, safety and mobility between Boulder and Longmont and the communities beyond by providing people with travel choices, including bicycle, riding transit, and driving. The Colorado Department of Transportation is working on the design of safety and mobility improvements for the corridor, including design of the BRT transit elements, roadway, and intersection improvements.
The plan for the 119 corridor is to develop a lot of different options. The 9-mile hard surface bikeway will be separated from vehicle traffic, making it safe for cyclists of all ages and all abilities. As electric bikes become more popular, more people will be able to travel between Longmont and Boulder by bike. The bikeway will be built in the median of the diagonal highway and will make the connections to transit stops, regional trails, multi-use paths, and important destinations along the corridor. It will be a year-round path that will be plowed to remain open even during our snowiest months.
The State Highway 119 multimodal corridor vision includes bus rapid transit service, which will provide high-frequency, reliable, and direct transit service from Boulder to Longmont. It will also be a link with other inter-regional transit routes to more destinations in the metro area and beyond.
Several roadway improvements will be implemented, including queue bypass lanes, which are bus-only lanes at key signalized intersections. While in this lane, the bus receives a special traffic signal, allowing it to proceed through the intersection while general traffic is stopped at the red light. Because buses have the special signal, they can jump ahead and then merge back into the general travel lanes ahead of other traffic.
In the future, the BRT service will connect with the Northwest Rail and Front Range passenger rail services.
Making a trip on the diagonal faster and more enjoyable would be pointless if there were bottlenecks experienced after the journey. That's why the vision plan addresses some troubled spots near the first and last miles of the trip in Boulder and Longmont.
Well, the City of Longmont is currently working on plans to do design work on Kaufman Street, a busway that will have dedicated transit lanes all the way from 1st Avenue to 9th Avenue in our downtown. This project on Kaufman Street will also provide better pedestrian access and pedestrian width for walking, as well as separated bike lanes. So despite all these improvements, automobile traffic will not be impacted at all by this project.
The City of Boulder's 28th Street Improvements Project will add continuous business access transit lanes from Iris to Pearl. These lanes will make sure that our BRT service does not get bogged down in traffic. The project will also fill in missing links in the multi-use paths along both sides of 28 from Baseline to Iris in order to create a continuous north-south multi-use path facility.
Improved mobility options and safety on State Highway 119 will ensure the transportation system continues to serve our community today and far into the future. As we move forward with the corridor vision, we'll continue to work with the community to achieve the vision of a safe, accessible, and efficient 119 corridor.
Hello, good evening. My name is Adnana Murtic. I'm with CEDA. I'm project manager for the Colorado 119 Safety and Mobility Improvements project. We have been working when we're now at our preliminary design milestone. However, before we dive into some of those design details, let me give you a quick introduction about the corridor. Basically, we're here tonight on behalf of two projects, the Safety and Mobility Improvements Project and Commuter Bikeway. Our projects focus on Colorado Highway 119 or Diagonal Highway between Boulder and Longmont, but as you will see later, they tie into greater RTD's BRT connectivity beyond this corridor. We have numerous project elements planned as part of these two projects, and they include intersection improvements, transit improvements, and a bikeway, which we will explain further throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. Currently, Colorado 119 is the highest crash corridor in the county for motorists and second highest for bikes. And during the 5-year period from 2015 to 2019, there were over 900 vehicle crashes, 17 bicycle crashes, and 2 pedestrian crashes. And then unfortunately, 4 result out of all those crashes, 4 were fatalities. Our projects are designed in a way to reduce these crashes and make this corridor safer. So over 20 years following the implementation of these improvements, it is expected that over 370 vehicle crashes will be prevented. The construction of the bikeway is expected to eliminate nearly all bikeway crashes. This corridor lacks a safe and direct way to travel from Boulder to Longmont by bike, and current Bolt bus service can be sometimes slow and unreliable, which means that many people choose not to ride the bus, and then corridor currently has safety and mobility challenges as the region grows, and these could only get worse. So these projects are basically intended to address these challenges and improve that mobility. And the new commuter bikeway is a safe, direct way for people to commute between these two cities. And RTD will be implementing new bus rapid transit service on this corridor, which is expected to cut transit travel times in half and increase ridership as a result of that. And then these projects are designed to again, mitigate the challenges of regional growth and enhance those travel choices in the corridor. Carl is going to tell us more about the commuter bikeway and its elements next.
Thank you, Anana. My name is Carl Buchholz. I'm part of the Bikeway design team. And as Anana said, I'm going to talk a few minutes about the Bikeway project. Our design principles for the Bikeway are to make it safe, direct, and accessible. We are going to separate it from the mainline road by safely placing it in the median of 119. It's going to be plowed throughout in the winter time so that it becomes an all-season facility. We will have underpasses at the major cross streets to avoid conflicts with heavy traffic. And we'll provide direct connections to the proposed BRT stations in the corridor. E-bikes will be allowed, class 1 and class 2 e-bikes, that is. And the bicycle way will connect to the existing bike networks in the corridor, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The Bikeway will also be ADA accessible. That's Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility, so that it's available for all users to access the Bikeway. I'm sorry, go back, please. Real quick, I wanted to also note the Bikeway will be 12 feet wide throughout with a few exceptions that I'll mention soon where it'll be widened. It'll include kind of a 5-foot native grass shoulder, and then that will be mowed. And then beyond that will just be native grass. The picture on the right, some of you may recognize, is a photo from the US 36 Bikeway. So it will have a similar feel in terms of the cross section and the width of the US 36 Bikeway. Next slide, please. So this map shows the corridor from Boulder on the left side to Longmont on the right side. And the blue triangles indicate where we will have connection points to existing bicycle facilities. And you can see the 3 park and ride locations by the small blue square symbol at 63rd Niwot and also at Highway 52. So we'll talk more about those connections as well. We've been coordinating with both the City of Boulder and the City of Longmont to provide connections on either end. Both cities are continuing to work on enhancing their bicycle systems that will provide enhanced connections in the future as they're able to do that. But you can see that we will have numerous connection points throughout the bikeway where bicyclists and pedestrians can access the facility. Next slide, please. So as an example, this shows the bikeway at J Road, which is towards the southern end of the corridor, with an underpass where the mainline bikeway will go under J Road. We will have what we call spur connections that come up to J Road to allow bicyclists to access bicycle facilities. And the green lines that you see on this diagram are the bike lanes on J Road. And the lower left area shows our ramp connections, how we will provide a direct connection to make it easily accessible for bicyclists going in either direction on J Road to access the bikeway through the spur connection. The lower right-hand side shows where the spur connection meets the mainline bikeway. At those locations, we will widen out the intersection of those two areas, or of that area, to facilitate turning movements for bicyclists that are accessing the bikeway and to minimize conflicts with through bicyclists that are going through the intersection. Next slide, please. So we also have a number of barriers that we're crossing in the corridor. And these are shown by the symbols on the map, similar map as what you saw before. We have two creeks noted by the blue B, the 4 Mile Creek near Boulder and Left Hand Creek in Longmont, that we will be constructing bridges for those overpasses, similar to the picture that you see in the upper left-hand corner. The U symbol is where we have underpasses at the major road crossings of J, 63rd, Niwot, Highway 52, and also 119 down just north of Fordham Street as well. And then the S symbols are where we have at grade or street level crossings of the minor roadways, the lower traffic minor roadways. And I'll talk about those in just a moment. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a rendering of a typical underpass. The underpasses will be 16 feet wide times 10 feet high. And at these locations, we will also widen out the bikeway to 16 feet in width to provide greater width for bicyclists and pedestrians, understanding that there might be increased activity through the underpass areas, and also to provide some buffer separation from the walls of the underpass, and just to provide a greater sized opening that is a more comfortable feel for bicyclists and pedestrians using it. But similarly to the other area, we'll have a mowed 5-foot shoulder of native grass, and then the embankment of the area around the underpass there as well. Next slide, please. Now I talk briefly about the what we call at-grade or street level crossings. There are 5 of these types of crossings at 55th Street, Monarch Road, Oxford Road, 83rd Street, and Fordham Street, where the bikeway will cross at street level. These are all low volume roadways, and we are going to enhance the crossing by providing advanced warning signs for the motorist, in this case on 55th Street is what's shown, but also requiring the motorist to yield to the bicyclist. And we propose to include a raised crossing to ensure that motorists are going slow when they cross the path. The green shaded area that you see is what we call sight triangles, where we will ensure that we have good visibility between the bikeway and the motorist as they approach. So there are some areas we will need to trim some trees and remove some trees to make sure we have good, safe visibility. And then we will also be installing warning signs on the bikeway to warn bicyclists of the crossing as well. So this treatment is what you will see at those locations. And then I'll talk a little bit later about 55th, or I'm sorry, about Airport Road. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ali Amansafahi. Thank you.
Good evening. This is my name is Ali Mansafahi. I'm the project manager for RTD. The map here shows what has been envisioned as part of the planning and linkage study that was finalized in 2019, where it shows two renditions of the BRT or bus rapid transit for the corridor connecting Boulder, downtown Boulder to North Longmont. It's really two projects that we're talking about when we're showing this map. The safety and mobility project, the very project that we're talking about right now. It's from Foothills Parkway to the south to Hoover Street to the north. And then as you see, the red logos in Longmont and Boulder are BRT stops that will be implemented in a parallel effort by RTD in the cities of Boulder and Longmont. With that, we will have major improvements at CU campus, as well as a new park and ride in Longmont. And then what you see in the middle, of course, the park and rides at Niwot Road and 63rd, along with a pair of BRT stops at Mineral Road or Colorado 52 will also be part of this project. BRT is, as mentioned earlier, is a high quality, high frequency bus service, much faster than the traditional service and Flatiron Flyer that has been in service since 2016, connecting Denver to Boulder for quite some time. So this would be similar to that. Over time, BRT service will replace the current Bolt. And then when that transition happens from Bolt to the new BRT, we will be removing the current bus stops on the right side of the roadway at intersections currently that serve Bolt. And the BRT stops and the two parking rides that you see at Niwot Road and 63rd, everything will be in the median of the corridor. Next slide, please. A whole host of roadway improvements we have envisioned for this corridor. We will be implementing new traffic signals, signing, pavement markings, lighting at intersections and park and rides on bus platforms. We will make traffic signals better synchronized and more responsive to the real-time traffic conditions. We will be physically reconfiguring Colorado 52 or IBM Drive or Colorado 52 or IBM Drive or Mineral Road, all the same intersection. And then we'll be making access changes at Airport Road. Therefore, the left turns will be eliminated from Airport Road and Oglala to make this intersection safer. Next slide. ITS, short for Intelligent Transportation Systems, is something that CDOT has been investing for years now. And this corridor is, is going to be following the same suit. It's basically integration of technology and electronics and telecommunications to improve traffic operations and safety and provide real-time information to travelers of all modes. So it's not just for vehicles, but it's for transit patrons, pedestrians, and cyclists as well. A few of these things that I can mention are closed circuit TVs, TV cameras that you have seen along the roadways and intersections. We will have variable message signs such as the one you see on this graphic, overhead or side mount. disseminating real-time information as well as traffic information, PSA announcements such as Amber Alerts, weather information, what have you. Road and weather information stations along with automatic traffic recorders will be also implemented as part of this project. All of this information gets fed to CDOT's Traffic Operations Center, where they host the website cotrip.org, which disseminates all sorts of traffic and traveler information to the public and to the media. Adaptive Signals is the state-of-the-art computerized system where it, again, with real-time conditions, as opposed to the traditional signal systems, changes the cycle lengths and adapts the phasings of the signals throughout the corridor to really optimize the traffic operation. Transit signal priority is where the bus approaching the intersection makes a call to the traffic signal controller and asks it to extend the green time so it could safely make the green phase and get across the intersection. These are just some examples of ITS improvements envisioned for the corridor. Next slide. And we're gonna be implementing a whole bunch of queue bypass lanes, which is the video is showing the bus way ahead of the intersection pulls into its own exclusive queue bypass lane, does its alighting and boarding, pulls up to the intersection, gets its own signal, and then moves ahead of the general purpose traffic, and then eventually on the far side of the intersection, merges onto the general purpose lane into general traffic. This makes, it's one of those things that makes the BRT operation quite a bit faster than the traditional bus service. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Stephen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Humphrey. I am serving as the consultant project manager for the 119 Safety and Mobility Improvements Project. And now I have the pleasure of diving into a few more of the details about the project and the proposed improvements. So starting at the south end of the project, the first intersection you see we've got improvements is at J Road. Here at J, you'll see those queue bypass lanes that Ali just explained. Right there. You'll also see, as Ali mentioned, a series of roadway and traffic improvements, such as upgraded signs, roadway striping, lighting, traffic signal upgrades, and those adaptive signal improvements that Ali mentioned as well. Also here at the intersection, the team continues to evaluate pedestrian and bike access, including those first and final mile connections you probably heard about in the video there. The existing bike lanes on J Road are going to remain the same as they are today, but we're going to be looking at locations of crosswalks, sidewalks, and other critical connections that are in the corridor and how we can best connect and move people to and from this location. You'll also note the Bikeway here has an underpass, as Carl mentioned, and then Carl also went over here at J Road, those spur connections that'll allow connections from the roadway to the Bikeway and back and forth. Something to kind of highlight here for the entire corridor is that there is a broader vision to develop future pedestrian and bike connections to the corridor. Quite a few of those connections that just don't exist today. So we'll certainly be looking to implement many of those connections as part of this project, but definitely anticipate more happening in the future with other projects. Moving on to 63rd Street and a little further north in the corridor, you'll see our first example of a BRT station and park and ride. So at this location, we're constructing 2 stations, as you can see here. Both of them are in the median and they're both on the same west side of 63rd Street. I know that can be confusing on the diagonal. There's also a parking lot, and then pedestrian connections from that parking lot to those stations, along with the Q bypass lanes that we've talked about at J and you'll see throughout the corridor. Additionally, there's going to be a bit of a reconfiguration of 63rd Street between northbound 119 and southbound 119 to accommodate access to that parking lot and the park and ride facilities. And we're also going to have some drainage, water quality, and other detention improvements in this area. Similar roadway and traffic improvements will take place as we've discussed with J Road, along with those pedestrian and bike access considerations. At this intersection, the bike lanes are going to remain the same as they exist today on 63rd Street, but we are going to be constructing this 10-foot multi-use path along the west side that you can see there. And we'll have that bikeway underpass again here at 63rd. All right, moving to 52. We're going to start here on the screen with just a plan view or photo of the existing intersection. The reason for that is right now you can see today 52 has one singular intersection for both northbound and southbound. And then if we move to the next slide, you'll see that singular intersection in the background. And up front, you'll see those new proposed improvements, which, as you can probably tell here, this is one of the more significant sets of improvements for the corridor. And hopefully you can kind of see that shift south and east, I guess, in this area of the diagonal, and that separation between northbound and southbound. So one thing that may come up is the question, well, why are we making such a big change here at 52? And I think this area highlights one of the biggest challenges within the corridor, which is the long queuing of cars, especially in those peak hours during the day. And so cars back up quite a bit longer than you might expect. There'll be traffic quite a distance from the intersection, leading to crashes between distracted drivers and those cars that are stopped in front of them. So our hope in this area is to realign and separate southbound from northbound so that we can improve the traffic flow in this area and hopefully have less of that dangerous queuing and those rear end crashes. Also here, we'll be constructing BRT stations at this location, although here we've got them on the opposite sides of 52, as you can see there. And we do not have a parking lot at the 52 intersection. And of course, with all the new improvements here, we'll also be including those Q bypass lanes and the roadway and traffic improvements that we've touched on before, and a connected multi-use path through this area. And then a bit like a broken record tonight, we'll have a bikeway underpass planned at this location as well. We can go ahead and move on to Niwot Road. So here you'll see an intersection very similar to that of 63rd with another BRT station and parking lot, park and ride. Again, as 63rd, we've got the stations both on that same side of the intersection. And we'll be reconstructing the parking lot here in this case and adding in drainage, water quality, and detention improvements. And of course, the Q bypass lanes as well. Like I've mentioned before, we'll have similar roadway and traffic improvements and pedestrian and bike access considerations. At Niwot, we're not making any adjustments to the current bike lanes that exist in the cross street there. And again, we'll be constructing that multi-use path you can see there along, in this case, I guess that would be the northeast side of the intersection. And of course, here at Niwot, we again have a bikeway underpass. Finally, at Airport Road, as Ali mentioned, we are proposing a change in access to the intersections here. So with this project, we're proposing the roadway between northbound and southbound 119 be changed to a one-way in the northbound direction, meaning that Airport Road southbound would be a right turn only. And then in addition to that, Northbound Ogallala Road would also be a right turn only. And so there's several facets at work as to why we're making this change at 119 and Airport Road. But some of the key considerations were safety at these two intersections, operations of the corridor, how we can move vehicles and buses safely along the corridor, and also facilitating the proposed BRT routes. One of the proposed routes runs from northbound 119 to northbound Airport. So there's many factors at work, and we'd be happy to dive into some more of the details offline as to how and why this decision was made to make this change here at Airport Road. And again, continuing along with some of the other improvements here for southbound 119, you'll see we've got those Q bypass lanes again that'll be constructed, and similar safety and operations improvements that we've talked about throughout the rest of the corridor. And then we'll be looking at pedestrian and bike considerations here as well. And so to discuss some of those details at more length and with more consideration with the Bikeway, I'll turn this back over to Carl so he can dive into some of those details.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, so this graphic shows a blow up of the intersection that Stephen was just talking about. And the dashed lines show bicycle movements to and from Airport Road going to the north of the blue line. It would be southbound bicycle traffic. Stephen mentioned the right turn only lane from southbound Airport Road to Boulder bound 119. That is a high volume movement. And by essentially kind of repurposing some of the Airport Road pavement width, we're able to provide a wider bicycle facility, a bike lane on Airport Road, and then provide a safer connection across the right turning movement. That would be a raised crossing to bring bicyclists into a raised island in the intersection of 119 and Airport Road, and then using the signal to cross across 119. And then in the opposite direction, represented by the purple dashed line, bicyclists would cross Airport Road Airport Road at grade there, and that crossing would be with a signal, just like the other direction, and it would be green most of the time for bicyclists, just like it is for cars, and there are no turning movement conflicts there, so that is a safer crossing than what's there today without those turning movements. And then to get across 119, bicyclists would go into a raised island and then cross over either into the existing path, side path, or along the bike lane going north. There's also plans but no funding for a future underpass that's represented by the dashed line in the main drawing connection to future Colorado 119 underpass. That underpass is not funded at this time, and so it is dependent upon receiving future underpass, but we are planning for that at some point in the future that would allow airport bicyclists coming south to go directly on that path and then under 119 to avoid the 119 traffic altogether. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adnana. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. So as I mentioned earlier, both projects, the safety and mobility improvement projects and Bikeway project, are in preliminary design phase. And both projects expect to complete final design in summer of 2023. Throughout design, our Community Advisory Committee and Equity Advisory Committee have guided our projects and providing crucial firsthand knowledge about this corridor. Construction of immediate project elements is targeted to begin in early 2024. And as we work through final design, we'll have more information about schedule and construction impacts, and we will definitely share that information with you at our final community meeting, also scheduled for summer of 2023. Our projects have an estimated project cost of $122 million. And through agencies, contributions, and grants, so far we have secured 91 million. And we're actively seeking the additional 31 million still needed to finish both projects. So when we go to bid for construction next year, we will build the project elements we have funding for. And these elements include the roadway safety and operation improvements, queue bypass lanes, parking rides, BRT stations, and underpasses for the bikeway. As additional funding becomes available, then we will build the remaining project elements. Now back to you, Carla.
Thank you, Adnana. And thank you to all of our presenters this evening for that very thorough project overview. Now to our audience. We have over about 135, 136 people that have been participating tonight, and I can see that many of you have already started putting your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question that's similar to one that has already been asked or submitted by somebody else, you can upvote the question by adding your thumbs up to it. And that question will be moved further up in the queue. Tonight, we're trying to focus in on those questions that are receiving a high level of voting, right? So, and we'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. So our project team is ready to respond to questions, and we're gonna do this till about 6:55. If we don't get to your questions this evening, don't worry. We will be compiling all the questions and providing responses and posting those on the community meeting website. Should you think of a question after tonight's meeting, you can still submit a question via that website up until July 18th. Now we'll move to the Q&A portion of our meeting. So I am going to start with a couple of questions that came through regarding Airport Road. So Adnana, I'm going to pass this one over to you. There is some concern about accidents that have been occurring on the street, and they want to know statistically what has been the accident activity and what's causing the need for changing access to Airport Road.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, that's a good question, and I believe Stephen mentioned a little bit about that activity and how those decisions have been made and what we looked at while working on that new layout at the Airport Road. And it's definitely, I have to say, there is a lot of factors that are actually contributed to that decision. And again, looking at the safety first and functionality of the whole intersection and traffic flow, and basically providing the best option given what we were looking at, starting from traffic data and the layout and all the accident in the corridor, and then basically making sure that everything is directed to that goal to provide that safety and functionality on not just for this intersection, but for the whole corridor. So again, starting with the traffic study and analyzing data, and then going further into just analyzing this specific intersection is one of those steps that we were taking at this intersection. So I don't know, Stephen, if you'd like to add to that. I mean, anything that would just help explain all the decisions made in the corridor.
Yeah, I mean, Adnana, I think you summarized it well. There's a lot of factors at play at Airport, whether it's the safety components of it. And I know in the chat, there's a lot of questions about signalizing the intersection there at northbound. And you know, it is a complicated topic of signalizing an intersection. It doesn't always make that intersection safer. Intersections do a lot of things well, especially in terms of controlling movements and flow of traffic, but they also create scenarios to have that queuing effect we talked about at 52 and potential rear end crashes, which is sort of a problematic item up and down the 119 corridor. So, you know, really the Airport Road intersection kind of balances that that safety component, the operational piece, and of course the cost as well. There's certainly a cost component to signalizing the intersection and additional infrastructure that would be required there. And so, yeah, there's a lot happening there at Airport Road.
Stephen. Carl, this next one is going to be for you. There's several questions in the Q&A here about e-bikes and the class of e-bikes that are being envisioned, as well as will there be a maximum speed limit placed on bikes that can be in the bike path. You want to talk a little bit about the thought on the e-bikes and safety in the corridor?
Yes, while there is not a specific signed speed limit along the bikeway, we are using a design speed of 25 miles per hour for the bikeway along areas outside of station areas. Within the station areas, the bus rapid transit station areas, we're dropping this design speed down to the 12 to 15 mile per hour range, because we know that there will be other users in the area. We want to make sure that we don't have bicyclists traveling too fast. We have designated the facility for class 1 and 2 e-bikes, which can typically are typically not as fast as a class 3 e-bike, which can go upwards of 30 miles per hour or more. And the reason for that is that we want this facility to be comfortable and safe for all users. And we recognize that there may be families using the facility. There may be, there will be pedestrians, there may be people with disabilities using the facility. And while we're building it to be 12 feet wide, which is a nice wide path, when we intermix much higher speed e-bikes, that also class 3 e-bikes that tend to be heavier, the potential for a crash and injury of a pedestrian or more vulnerable user would increase. So that's why we are looking at just class 1 and 2 e-bikes in this area, not class 3 e-bikes. Stacy, did you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, thank you, Carl, for that. Just currently, county policy is that class 1 and 2 e-bikes are allowed on multi-use paths. So it's definitely something we can look at a county-wide level if we're at a point where we want to consider class 3 e-bikes for certain facilities. But currently, that's the county's policy. So I appreciate all the comments, and I think it's something that we can look into and consider in the future.
Thank you. This next one's going to be for you, Ali. There's a couple of questions in here, and I apologize because every time somebody puts something in, it pushes me right back up to the top. So I'm trying to get to the question that came regarding stop access for U-Car and N-Car. There was some concerns that there are employees and visitors that use the stop at 47th. As well as at 47 and getting access to East Boulder locations like Valmont Park, Sterling Circle, and the Foothills Bike Path. Do you want to talk a little bit about the 47th Street stop?
Currently at 47th Street, there are no BRT stops envisioned for that, but the decision for placing the BRT stops was something that was worked up through the planning and environmental linkage study. As I said, it was finalized in 2019 with all the stakeholders from both the cities of Longmont and Boulder, along with Boulder County. And they were strategically located as we can't have the same number of stops like a traditional bus stops. Otherwise, the BRT is not going to be as rapid as it's supposed to be. Having said that, I believe there are connections to other routes in that vicinity. But if Sage is on the line, I'm going to ask him to see if he has anything to add.
Hi, Ollie. I don't really have anything to add in addition to what you just said. Thank you.
Okay, I am going to go back to Carl because we do have a couple of other questions here with regards to bikes. One was, will this, by putting the bikeway in place, will this be something that now CDOT, well, maybe it's a CDOT question, Adana, to allow bicycles to ride on 119 or to continue to ride on 119?
Do you want to take that, Adana?
I can start and you can jump in if you'd like, Carl, but definitely, I mean, I don't, if I heard the question correctly, it's basically, we're not changing anything when it comes to using those shoulders. It's definitely open for personal choice. If you'd like to ride on a new bikeway, please do so. Or if you prefer those shoulders, they're staying, we're not touching them. So it's definitely up to individual users how to use the corridor. And that's what we were talking about, those choices, you know, that we'd like to provide to, for everybody, whatever feels comfortable and whatever feels convenient. That's how we'd like to move forward.
Yeah, I don't have any more to add other than that's our understanding as well with on the design of the bikeway, that it would be, the shoulders would remain open for bicycle users.
All right, here's another one, Carl, then. Maybe this is about the underpasses for the bikeways. Will they have, this is really a drainage issue, right? Will the underpasses, how are you going to deal with drainage, and will they fill up more quickly because they're in low areas? How are you mitigating that?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've spent a fair amount of time looking at underpass locations and possibilities of overpasses, but where we settled is the underpasses will include pump systems, and because there is a lot of groundwater and low-lying areas, so each underpass will have a pump system. There is one underpass where we might be able to have what we call gravity drainage without a pump, but most of the underpasses will have pump systems that are designed as part of them, which is not completely uncommon in this area.
Adnana, another one for you. Will there be opportunities for road noise mitigation? Specifically, I think this one was around north of Niwa.
So we're, when it comes to anything around, like outside, we're not doing anything really. I mean, all the work is happening in the medium. So, and I don't know, but I believe I saw that question. I think there were some, you know, variations about the speed limits, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So I don't think we will be addressing that at this time.
Here's another one for bikes. At 63rd Street, can there be improved connections for pedestrians and bike paths to get to the interior of Gun Barrel?
There, as Stephen mentioned, when he talked about 63rd Street, there are going to be upgrades to the pedestrian crossings and maintaining the bike lanes at 63rd Street. That work is still being designed in terms of exactly what type of improvements will happen, but there is not, I think I can say, but I should defer to CDOT on this, that there's not planned to be a direct connection outside of the right of way of 119 into Gun Barrel. That's part of this project that it would not be included. But the overall intersection configurations as the transit queue jump lanes are being designed will consider getting pedestrians safely across those intersections and across 119 as part of the design of that project. And Adnana, do you have anything else you want to add to
No, I mean, the goal, like you said, is definitely to keep focus on those connections and make sure that while we are out there, that we are working on providing that safe access, regardless of intersection. And it's definitely, even if you're not doing anything outside of our right of way, we will definitely leave those connections open for any future development or any future connections for possible other bike paths that are outside the right of way for this project.
Okay, thank you for a couple of the nice comments of people seem to be excited about the project as well. Adnana, there's a question here about construction, and when we get to construction, will traffic be rerouted?
That's an interesting question, I have to say, and that also depends on how we're going to do construction. And as I think I mentioned earlier, that as we get closer, I mean, right now we are approximately at 30%. And then when we get closer, sometime maybe mid next year, we will get a better idea how we want to approach the construction. And we will definitely do our best to provide the traffic flow through the corridor and without minimal interruptions. But definitely, and since we're doing a lot of work in the median, we actually talked about that a little bit. I don't think there's going to be much need for rerouting other than maybe 52, because that is a major reconstruction. That one is definitely something to look at and make sure that we still provide access and flow through the whole corridor.
And Nana, we're continuing to get a lot of questions about Airport Road and people understanding the justification for that. And these don't seem to be questions, but really more statements. So I think we need to provide maybe some more information around airport, or so people can understand that a little bit more. Would it be, I think when we do here's what I'll tell the folks that are listening tonight. When we do the Q&A or the question and answers and we publish them up, we're going to put some more information in that document so that you're able to see some of the information or the consideration, the data that went into making that decision. And I think that will help people better understand, Adnana, some of the decisions that are being proposed here and why that is valuable to safety.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that idea. That way we can lay out the facts maybe and just help understanding those decisions and how and the whole process that we went through for this particular intersection. Yeah.
But I think these comments are really helpful for us to be able to understand what people's concerns are and where those are focusing.
I agree.
Let's see. It appears that vehicles will have difficulty turning left into the parking areas at the bus station. This is again more of a statement. There may be traffic cues from the traffic signals that could block access. So I think that is really wanting to make sure that people who are turning left into the signal lanes, that they can still have access and not block the through traffic.
Lead. I'm going to start, and Ali, please jump in. But if you're talking specifically about 63rd, we looked into that, and I don't see any major issues with that left turn, because again, the decisions that we're making are definitely backed with analysis and looking into traffic data and numbers and everything. So I'm sure that we will not have major issues there.
Thank you, Adnana. I can also add to that. Yes, traffic studies were done at all the parking and ride locations that are going to be located in the median. 63rd, the parking and ride is planned to be on the west side of 63rd, whereas Niwot, it's going to be basically where it's at now, but it's going to be much larger. None of the traffic studies indicated that the left turning movement is going to be difficult. In fact, there was plenty of gaps based on the simulation models that we saw that they could safely make that maneuver and make the left turn into the parking lot.
So there, as we talk about, as I said, we continue to see comments with regards to airports. So I do appreciate that people are upvoting, so we know where your thoughts are this evening. Oh no, I lost it there. There was a question in here with regards to getting public input around some of the changes, and what have we done to reach out to folks, to local folks in the area, to get their comments. Maybe that's one that we can talk to, or that we can push to you, Adnana, in terms of the outreach and having conversation, or maybe Stephen with the traffic study that took place.
Yeah, I can start, and if Stephen's here, he can jump in. But yeah, we did, as I said, before this meeting, we did send out postcards to just to present that proposal and then have an input. And this meeting also just to, you know, collect comments and then review those comments and you know, basically let everybody know about the plans for this particular intersection.
There was another question here. I'm trying to find it. Other than the raised bike lanes, will there be any changes made to the minor intersections at 55th, Monarch, etc.? I think that's a roadway and a bikeway question.
I can start off answering that, and Adnan or Stephen can jump in. But as we showed in the graphic, the primary changes are just the raised crossing and the signing and striping improvements that would be put in place to require motorists to yield to the bicycle facility and also warn them of the bicycle crossing. But there are no changes right now proposed at the intersections of those minor roads with 119. But Adnan or Stephen, please jump in if you have anything to add to that.
I can jump in on this one. So I think, and this is probably something that should be mentioned for all the intersections in the corridor, but the team here has completed a safety assessment of each intersection, starting with the 5 signalized that was part of the larger, broader traffic study that was complete, but also for those unsignalized intersections. And so we'll be looking at any safety or other types of recommendations that come out of those assessments to see if there's anything that should be implemented as part of this project, if there's any patterns of accident history or certain kinds of crashes that could be avoided or potentially eliminated with some sort of recommendations. That work is underway, and we're close to having some recommendations to look at and incorporate into the design. We don't have that finalized at this point in time, although I know a question that has come up in the past is whether or not we would look to have any changes to access at some of those unsignalized intersections. And as far as we know to date, I don't know that that would be part of the recommendations. I think it would be more any kind of specific improvements at those intersections that could improve safety.
Here's another one for you, Stephen. I'm going to go ahead and just keep you on here. There's a question here with regards to consideration of change in traffic speed from 65 miles an hour to 55 miles an hour between Niwot and Longmont.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. Speed limits in the state of Colorado it's a complex topic. It's one of those things where there's a very prescribed process that's followed in the state of Colorado and by the Department of Transportation on how to evaluate and potentially adjust speed limits. There are some additional flexibilities today from what existed 5 years ago. And I know this team has discussed evaluating and going through that process to see what the recommendations might be for this corridor. in the future. I think I would just sort of caution folks that those kinds of processes don't always result in a decrease in speed. In some cases, they may recommend the same speed or even an increase in speed. I'm not saying that would be likely here, but it is one of those scenarios where you follow a very prescribed process and the outcome of that process is what then the speed limit is set at. I think that probably one of the key takeaways is, since this is a main thoroughfare between Longmont and Boulder, I don't think that it's likely that we'd be, changing the speed down significantly throughout the corridor. Maybe there'd be an opportunity to look at some adjustments, but it wouldn't be a full sale change. So I think that's something the project team has discussed and can look to incorporate and potentially make some recommendations. But like I said, it's not as simple as just changing the speed limit signs.
Thank you for that, Stephen. Here's another one. Currently, there is an underpass for cyclists southbound 119 at Airport, under Airport Road. There are cyclists that avoid the underpass and cycle on 119, creating regular hazards. How do your plans address this current issue and similar non-compliance in the future?
I can start off answering that one. Yeah, we looked pretty closely at that underpass that's under Airport Road. It is not well utilized at all. It has had issues with drainage, and it has had issues with accumulation of sediment and debris and other trash and whatnot that make it very unusable. The underpasses that we're proposing are going to be much wider and will be, as I mentioned earlier, pumped to eliminate accumulation of water in the facility. They will be lighted as well, so that there is, improved personal safety through the underpass too. So I think the takeaway from that is, if we're really striving to design the underpasses in a way that they are comfortable and very usable for the locations that we're putting forth. And but we've learned some lessons with the underpass that's currently under Airport Road.
I don't know, Adnana or Stephen, did you want to add to that at all?
I don't have anything additional to add.
Okay, here's another one. Will new bus lanes have the right-of-way on the shoulder during standing traffic like they do on 36?
I think I'm going to start just by saying this is a different configuration, really, because 36 is on the outside, we are on the inside. And the goal here is we have the right of way, we have the real estate and the median, and we're going to go ahead and design that way. And if you remember from previous slides how we were showing everything is happening in the median, and then those Q bypass lanes that's their purpose really for buses, just to get through intersections and not be stuck in the queue, and just have that preference through intersection, through anything that would prevent them just to providing that BRT service. That is the goal, really. So it's again, just to make it short, it is a different configuration than 36, but being in the median.
Carl, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Carla, I was just going to add on, there's another really good question in the chat that was kind of related to the bypass lanes, about the previous planning and environmental linkage study, where one of the recommendations was an HOV or managed lane throughout the corridor. And so I wanted to just talk about that a little bit. And Nana described very well the Q bypass lanes that will be constructed in the median or the inside of the corridor, so the buses have that ability to move around the backed up traffic and head to the front of the line. But the other thing that does do is kind of set the framework so that if it does warrant those HOV or managed lanes throughout the whole corridor in the future, that build out could take place. And just to directly answer the question about what happened to the managed lanes, that was evaluated as part of the traffic study and due to several factors, including cost, and also the fact that as far as BRT service, we could achieve similar metrics and goals by utilizing these Q bypass lanes in the interim. We decided that we would move forward with the interim improvements not right now for the bypass lanes, but set things up in such a manner that in the future they could be expanded to accommodate that kind of HOV or managed lane configuration that was in the planning and environmental linkage study, if and when and at that point in time when there's the traffic that would warrant that.
Thank you. Let's see here. There's continue to be comments here with regards to wanting to know if we took into consideration during the traffic study, the proposed growth that is occurring around Airport Road. So this was specifically number of new residents. Oh darn, it keeps doing this, hold on. I lose the question, so I apologize for that.
Carla, I can start, and I'm sure there are plenty of others that can jump in on that question. But as far as the traffic study that was completed, yes, we did look at traffic numbers or projections out to the year 2045. I mean, those numbers do have and will continue to shift around pre and post pandemic. So, I mean, they're a projection. They're not, they're the best information we have to go off of. I will also say that those projections incorporate proposed development and growth based on information from the state demographer's office, land use information, and projections from the communities, and so on and so forth. That's my really long rambling way of saying they're just a good guess. So we do have all that information incorporated, and that's what's running through the models that we've run for the traffic, is not what the traffic numbers are today, but what that 20-year forecast looks like, and the best available information we have to evaluate the growth and how we can operate and build out the corridor in the best possible scenario for those projected numbers.
Thank you, Stephen. Carl, here's another one with regards to the bikeway. Will there be a sufficient amount of visibility through those underpasses? I don't think I phrased it exactly right, but I think that's what they were, because I keep losing it.
Yes, so that is definitely a design consideration that we've taken as we've been looking at the underpasses to not create blind corners. I should say there is one underpass at the far north end of the corridor that is a little bit more challenged, and we're still looking at that. It does have a little bit tighter connection into the underpass due to constrained right-of-way. So that's something that we will be talking about during our preliminary design review. But all the other underpasses, we have gone through the process of making sure we have gentle curvature entering into the underpass so that there's good sight lines for bicyclists entering and exiting the bike paths.
There's another bikeway question. I'm going to keep you on for just a moment. Another bikeway pedestrian and more slow-moving traffic through the bike paths. There's some question here with regards to safety and how you're looking at managing those movements through the bikeway.
Yeah,
Safety
so that's a good.
consideration.
Sure, that's a good question. We are, as I mentioned, specifically widening the bikeway in those areas because we recognize there may be some increased activity at some of the underpasses. So all the underpasses are going to be 16 feet wide, which is 4 feet wider than the rest of the path in that area to allow for greater room and maneuverability, knowing that there might be transit users or others in that area. We have talked about the, how we would configure that. There may be some additional signing. We've talked about striping, but we're not sure if the path would be wide enough to actually stripe out a designated pedestrian area while still providing areas for bicyclists. But those things are going to be discussed and talked about as we move from preliminary to final design, so that we make sure we're making this a safe facility for all users, especially in and around the station areas.
Thank you, Carl. Adnana, here's another one for you. It says, very few people are adhering to the speed limits and many safety issues are due to excessive speeding. Is there any plan to have more monitoring of speeds and ticketing to increase safety on 119?
With all the ITS implementations, we are hoping, and then we do have currently in the process adaptive signals that will hopefully help with those problems, and then provide a safer environment, and just to prevent those people from speeding and using the corridor. If they have continuous green light, hopefully there will be no reason to have increased speeds. And again, I mean, we are not in a situation to to really monitor, and that's not what we do, honestly. But at the same time, as I said, it's on us to design intersection in a way that there will be flow of traffic and better functionality of intersections, where hopefully it will help people not to tend to push their gas a little bit more.
Can I add something to that too?
Sure, please, Ellie.
Speeding is a major issue everywhere, and it's not specific to this corridor, and dealing with it, as was the case with US 36 when that project was implemented. Honestly, the law enforcement agencies need to be brought up to speed, and this should be discussed with them, including CSP and then Boulder and Longmont PDs. Echoing what my friend Adnana just said, this is not a CDOT issue. This is really a law enforcement issue, and it really needs to be dealt as such.
Yes, that CDOT, RTD, and Boulder County are not, enforcement agencies, law enforcement agencies. So that makes that a little different. But whatever can be done, as Adnana said, to help design improvements to help reduce that is, I think, the goal of this project. There was a question earlier about explaining, perhaps maybe Adnana explaining a little bit more about preliminary and final design, and how we might be taking these, be able to take these comments into consideration.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand that question. I apologize. Can you explain a little bit, please? I'm not sure that.
So how with where we're at in the project right now, how will the comments that are coming in tonight be taken into consideration?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, thank you first of all of you for your great questions and your great input. And it's for us just having this meeting and talking to public. It just gives us a different approach, and you as users, and with your comments, it helps us maybe see things that we don't see. I mean, we definitely. As I said, we do have a goal to make it safer, to make it functional, and improve operations through the corridor. So now when we go back and look at all your comments, and then we will definitely take them into consideration and see what's feasible to include, and what the best outcome would be really from including or considering or maybe combining some of those and just coming up with a solution that is not just per book, but that or also user friendly and something that would benefit the majority of users in the corridor. And I understand, I mean, and I respect your opinion when you're concerned about this intersection or that intersection. I can completely understand that, but at the same time, when we are looking at the corridor that it's this big and this important for not just Boulder County, but for the whole region, we really need to look at so many factors. And that, again, definitely great to have your input and see firsthand how we can improve certain experiences throughout the corridor.
Thank you, Adnana. And that's actually gonna have to be our last question of the evening. Really, you guys have, thank you for all of you from the public that have participated. You've submitted some great questions, some really good things for us to think about. As we said, we will be taking questions on the project website. You see it there, the bit.ly / diagonal highway projects. You can continue to submit your questions through July 18th. We will then be developing answers or an FAQ based on the comments and the questions that you've been asking tonight, and we will submit those, or post those, I should say, on the website. I think also I want to make sure that you understand that as we're having this comment, this is really two projects. It's the CDOT RTD project, and it's also the Bikeway project. So both are taking input to their elements of the project. The Bikeway still has a lot more opportunity to make a lot of those changes. So please submit those. As you are also able to, please visit our project websites. So you can see both of those listed here. The roadway and bus rapid transit site is on the top. So CO119 safetymobility@gmail.com. And for the Bikeway project, you can go to, this is a long one, bouldercounty.org/transportation. You can see it all there. Or you can email aphillips@bouldercounty.org for questions specifically to the Bikeway. We will have our next and final meeting associated with the for community outreach next summer. So we've got a lot of work to do with the information that you've provided, and continue to help to monitor us. Thank you all so much for participating this evening. Again, we had some great participation and a lot of really good questions. So I hope you all have a great evening. And again, thank you to Marina for the Spanish interpretation. And you all have a lovely evening. Thank you.